Are we recording? Yes, we are. So, welcome to another talk about vinyl and CDs. So, if you are just tuning in right now, my name is Chris Profi, and welcome to the apartment. And I tell this story every time, but I just moved in August 1st, and I've got a crap load of CDs still back in my parents' house in storage, like literally 14 bins of CDs. It's probably like 3,000. I've got a lot of CDs here in my bedroom, and about 170 albums on vinyl, everything from jazz to metal. But what I want to talk about today is one of my favorite metal bands, and they are Judas Priest. Now, Judas Priest has a lot of albums, and I actually just saw them live this past summer at Bethel Woods near Woodstock for the Firepower tour, and they were great. I mean, Rob Halford can still sing like a madman, and I really feel like Firepower is probably their best album since Painkiller. So, that's saying a lot. I think all the songs are very strong. It's got a great sound to it, and it just kicks you over the head. But I want to talk about some of my favorite Judas Priest albums, and I'm going to start with their very first album, Rolla. And I'm telling you, if I had to pick one Judas Priest album, it would be this, Rolla. I just love, excuse me, I've got an itch on my nose. I just love the sound of this album. It's like, I know a lot of people, like reading some reviews, people are like, Judas Priest hadn't found their sound yet. Maybe, but the sound that they were creating was great. And I kind of put this in the same league as the Scorpions' first album, Lonesome Crow, the first Blue Cheer album, Iron Butterfly. There was a band called Crow. There were a lot of bands around that era, and they all had that same sort of bluesy, hard rock bluesy, the beginnings of metal. And that's what this album is, Rolla. So the songs, One for the Road, great opener. And then the tune Rolla, that is just a catchy song. That's the bottom line. I never get tired of listening to it. It's a great, catchy song. Winter, Deep Freeze, Winter Retreat, really cool, proggy, atmospheric sounds inside that song, and then that leads right into Cheater. Great guitar riff, awesome singing by Ralph. Awesome singing by Rob Halford, and the song Cheater is just great. Okay, now moving on to side 2. Love these pictures too. Great pics on the album. Side 2. God, I can't get rid of this itch. Never Satisfied. Another kick-ass song. Rob does some great vocals on that song. Run of the Mill. Great song. It starts off really mellow, and then it gets into that. It builds and builds and builds. Great tune. Dying to Meet You. Great bass line in that. And then the last song, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Caviar and Mets. Just like a little instrumental at the end. But it's a great album. It's produced by Roger Bain. And I believe that he produced the first Budgie albums, I want to say. And didn't he produce Black Sabbath as well? Correct me if I'm wrong. But again, Budgie. Forgot about Budgie. I'm going to have to do a Budgie review too. I put Budgie in the same category as that first Judas Priest album. Same sound, same vein. great 70s bluesy hard rock. Okay, so Rolla, probably my top Judas Priest album. All right, next. I don't have these next two on vinyl, but I have them on CD. But again, CDs back at the parents' house. So I took some notes here because I wanted to remember the songs. So my next favorite Judas Priest album, and you're going to find that these three albums that are my favorite are from the 70s. I think Judas Priest was really just on fire. Every album, kept getting bigger and heavier, and they were just on a roll. The next album is Sin After Sin. And, as a kid, growing up in the 80s, of course, the album had already been out. But I remember, seeing the logo, or not the logo, but how they wrote Judas Priest on the album cover. I thought it was so cool. And the cover for Sin After Sin, it's just got that dark cover to it. It's a great, great cover. And I remember seeing it at it was like a Walgreens or something like that when they used to sell cassettes, and they used to have that cassette thing that you twirl. And I remember seeing like all the Kiss cassettes. I bought a bunch of Kiss cassettes, and I got the Judas Priest cassettes, and Sin After Sin was one of the cassettes that I had. And it just hit me right over the head when I started listening to it. It opens up with Sinner. I mean, you can't get much better than that. Awesome opening song. And then Diamonds and Rust. Now, that song, for the longest time, I thought it was a Judas Priest song. And then I was doing some research and realized it was written by Joan Baez. And then that got me turned on to Joan Baez, and then I had to have everything that she owned. Great folk artist. But, it's a funny story because very rarely does a metal band lead you to a folk singer. But in this case, Diamonds and Rust did. And the live version of Diamonds and Rust on Unleashed in the East is awesome too. But I think I like the studio version better. Next, Starbreaker. Catchy, catchy song. Last Rose of Summer. I mean, the 70s were great because these metal bands like Sabbath and Priest and, I'm going to put Zeppelin and Deep Purple in there, even though, they were kind of on the fringes of metal. But they could pull out, Scorpions too, Budgie. They could just rock and just shred. But then they pull out this beautiful song like Last Rose of Summer. And Rob's vocals it just shows you how good of a singer he is in that song. Let Us Pray, great song. Call for the Priest, Raw Deal. Get you back in, side 2, just kicks you over the head. Here Come the Tears, building and building and building. And then it ends with Dissident Aggressor, which is a great metal song. And it's such a good metal song that Slayer covered it on South of Heaven. And I'll have to do a review of that album because that's my favorite Slayer album. But for Slayer to cover Dissident Aggressor, yeah, it's a good song. All right, so Rolla, Sin After Sin. My other favorite Judas Priest album coming in the 70s is Stained Class. And, again, great cover artwork on that. Got the spike going through the head. And another great opener. It opens up with Exciter. I mean, you can't get much better than that. White Heat, Red Hot. Catchy, another catchy tune. And then, Better by You, Better Than Me. This is another song. I thought it was a Priest song until I did a little research. Found out it was by Spooky Tooth. So if you didn't know that, now as you know. Spooky Tooth wrote Better by You, Better Than Me. Listened to their version. Loved it. So then I bought the first Spooky Tooth album. Then I bought Spooky 2. And then I bought the third album, which I can't remember the title of it. It's got weird sound effects over the songs. That one's still building on me. But Spooky Tooth, another great band. But I learned about them through Priest. So Better by You, Better Than Me. Then Stained Class, great song. Invader, probably for me, the weakest track on the album, but still a good song. Saints in Hell, great vocals by Rob. Savage, and then the classic Beyond the Realms of Death. And that song, yeah, it's probably like a top 5 song for me for Priest. Just the way it builds, and it comes at the end of the album after they've hit you over the head, and then they give you this epic song, and it blows me away every time I hear it. And then it ends with Hero's End. So again, just all around, really, really, really strong album. Now, I said 3 albums, but I'm gonna add one more album. If I was to pick my favorite Priest album from the 80s, and don't worry, I'm not gonna say Turbo, even though the song Turbo Lover kicks ass. I remember seeing that on Headbangers Ball when I was a kid. The album that I would say for me is the best from the 80s would be Defenders of the Faith. So, let me know what you think. Are your favorite Judas Priest albums? Like I said, it started with me with Rocka, Rolla, and then Sin After Sin, Stained Class, and then if I was going to pick another one from the 80s, I'd say Defenders of the Faith. But again, Firepower, their newest album, kicks ass too. I saw them live. If you get a chance to see them live, do it. Now, when I saw them live at Bethel in Woodstock, it was Judas Priest and Deep Purple playing together, and Judas Priest opened for Deep Purple. And I'm a huge Deep Purple fan too, but it didn't work for me though. Like, I feel like Deep Purple should have opened for Judas Priest, because Judas Priest just brought so much more energy. Deep Purple, they're great musicians, but I feel like Ian Gillan can't sing as well as he used to. Rob can still sing as well as he could back in the day. And I just felt like Priest brought more energy, so I felt like Deep Purple should have opened for him. But still, it was a great concert. It was just Deep Purple was a little bit more mellow than Priest was. And really, to tell you the truth, when I was thinking about putting those two together for a tour, and I don't know, it just didn't seem to work for me. Even though they came up in the same era, the 70s, they came out of that blues sound. I felt like Judas Priest took it to another level with the look and the metal sound and the crunchy guitars. And Deep Purple kind of stuck with that blues sound. But, it's still a cool concert to see. But I'm getting a little off topic. But you know what? If you haven't listened to any Priest in a while, pull it out. Whether it's on vinyl, CD, cassette, 8-track, just pull it out, listen to it. All right? So enjoy your night, and I'll see you in a bit.